The great crystal dome of Nexus Prime sparkled under 3 purple suns. Inside the massive hall, representatives from 4 different alien species sat around a floating table made of pure light. This was the Galactic Council, the most powerful group in known space. Captain Taman adjusted his crystalline armor and looked around the room with tired eyes. He had been to hundreds of these meetings over the past 50 years. Most of them were boring talks about trade routes and mining rights. Today felt different, though. Today, old scholar Young Sik had requested special time to speak about something he called urgent. Young Sik was ancient, even by Vorthak standards. His crystal body had grown dim with age, and tiny cracks ran through his arms like old scars. He stood slowly at the center of the room, holding a small device that projected holographic images into the air. Fellow council members, Young Sik began, his voice crackling like breaking glass. I have discovered something that may change everything we know about our galaxy. Commander Haiwan of the Nimari floated in her gas-filled suit and made a sound like wind through caves. Her people lived in the clouds of gas-giant planets and thought solid beings were strange. What could be so important, old one? We have real problems to discuss. Pirates are attacking our mining ships again. Young Sik touched his device and the air filled with fuzzy images. They showed damaged data files, broken transmissions, and blurry pictures of strange objects in space. These fragments come from the Outer Rim territories. For 300 years, our explorers have been sending back reports about a species that should not exist. Admiral Ji-Ho clicked her mandibles together in the way Kelthans showed disbelief. Her insect-like body was covered in thick armor, and her forearms moved constantly as she spoke. The Outer Rim is a wasteland. Nothing can live out there. The radiation storms alone would kill any known life form in days. That is exactly my point, Young Sik said. He made the hologram show a blue and green planet spinning slowly in space. According to these records, there was once a world called Earth. It was home to a species that called themselves humans. The room erupted in noise. Haiwan's gas suit hissed as she laughed. Jiho's wings buzzed with amusement. Even the usually quiet Drenari representative, Admiral Insu, bubbled something that sounded like underwater laughter. Taemin held up one crystal hand for silence. Please let him continue. What makes you think these humans were real? Young Sik's projection changed to show technical data. The fragments describe bipedal mammals with no natural weapons, no energy manipulation abilities, and no protective armor. They used primitive chemical reactions for power and built machines from metal and stone. Impossible, Haiwan said, her voice echoing strangely through her breathing apparatus. No species that weak could survive space travel. The void storms in the Outer Rim would destroy their primitive ships in minutes. Young Sik nodded sadly. I thought the same thing for many years. But look at this. The hologram showed star charts with highlighted paths through dangerous space. These routes go through areas we consider completely impassable. Yet something has been using them. Admiral Insu spoke for the first time, his voice gurgling through the water in his tank. Even if such beings existed once, they must be extinct now. Their homeworld shows signs of ecological collapse in these old images. Yes, Young Sik agreed. Earth appears to have been dying when these records were made. But here is what troubles me. He showed new data, this time with recent dates. Our deep space monitoring stations have been detecting strange transmissions from the Outer Rim. Signals that do not match any known technology. Jiho's 4 eyes focused on the data streams. As a military commander, she understood technical information better than most. These power signatures are wrong. They show massive energy outputs from sources that should not be able to generate such power. Exactly, Young Sik said. Whatever is sending these signals is using technology based on controlled nuclear fusion. We abandoned such dangerous methods thousands of years ago. Taemin studied the information carefully. His crystal brain could process data faster than most organic minds, but what he saw made no sense. Scholar Young Sik, you are suggesting that a primitive species somehow survived the destruction of their world and learned to travel through the most dangerous regions of space? I am suggesting we should investigate these signals before what? Haiwan interrupted. Before mythical creatures attack us with their stone tools. The room filled with laughter again. Even serious Admiral Insu seemed amused by the idea. Taemin felt sorry for the old scholar, but the evidence was just too weak. Young Sik, Taemin said gently. These fragments are 300 years old. The signals you mention could be anything. Pulsars, solar flares, equipment malfunctions in our own monitoring stations. But what if they are not? Young Sik asked desperately. What if somewhere out in the dark these humans are still alive? What if they are coming this way? Admiral Jiho made a dismissive clicking sound. Even if such impossible beings existed, what could they do against us? Our weapons can destroy planets. Our shields can stop stars. What threat could primitive mammals with chemical rockets pose to the Galactic Council? The vote was quick and unanimous. The Council officially classified all information about humans as mythological curiosities and filed it away with stories about space dragons and planets made of cheese. Young Sik's request for a deep space investigation was denied due to budget concerns. As the meeting ended, the representatives returned to their ships and their duties. They had important work to do. Trade agreements needed signing. Territories needed defending. Real problems needed solving. None of them noticed the small alert that appeared on Young Sik's personal monitor as he gathered his materials. A routine message from Deep Space Station Echo 7 reported unusual gravitational disturbances near the edge of Council space. The computer had automatically classified it as a minor asteroid collision and filed it away without human review. Young Sik saw the alert and felt ice-cold fear run through his crystal veins. He tried to access the detailed data, but his clearance level was too low. The information was locked away in military databases that only senior admirals could access. He sat alone in the empty council chamber, staring at the small hologram of Earth that still floated above his device. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, something was moving toward them, something that should not exist, but the Council had spoken. Humans were myths, nothing more than sensor ghosts and spacer stories. In the depths of the outer rim, massive ships drifted silently through radiation storms that would cook any normal vessel in seconds. Inside those ships, millions of sleeping forms lay in cryogenic pods dreaming of a new home among the stars. The humans were coming. 3 months after the council meeting, Commander So-Jin was having a very bad day. The mining station Kepler-7 was supposed to be a quiet assignment in the neutral zone between council territories. Nothing ever happened here except the occasional equipment breakdown or supply delivery. So-Jin floated in her water-filled command tank, reviewing the daily reports. As a Drenari, she needed to stay submerged in specially treated seawater to breathe properly. The tank was connected to the station's main computer through neural interfaces that let her control everything with thought commands. "Commander," called Technician Dalsu from his workstation, "I'm getting some weird readings from the deep space sensors." So-Jin sent a mental command to display the sensor data on her tank's internal screens. At first, everything looked normal, just the usual background radiation and distant starlight. Then she saw it, a faint energy signature moving slowly through the outer detection grid. "Probably another asteroid," she said, her voice bubbling through the water. "Run a detailed scan and file the report." But as the hours passed, the signature grew stronger and more defined. Whatever was out there was definitely artificial. It was also huge, much larger than any ship in the Council databases. "Commander, you need to see this," Dalsu said urgently. His voice carried the tone that meant serious trouble. "The computers have identified 5 separate objects. They're approaching at sublight speed on a direct course for Council space." So-Jin felt her gills flutter with worry. 5 unknown ships entering Council territory could mean invasion. It could mean war. Send an alert to the nearest patrol fleet, then try to establish communication with the unknown vessels. The response came faster than expected. A transmission in broken galactic standard, heavily accented and difficult to understand. The voice was strange. Not the crystal tones of a Vorthak or the wind whisper of a Nimari or the clicking of a Kelton. It sounded almost organic, warm, alive in a way that made So-Jin's scales tingle. "This is Captain Wanbin of the UES Indomitable," the voice said slowly, as if reading from a translation guide. "We request peaceful contact and assistance. We carry civilian families seeking new home. Please respond." So-Jin stared at her screens in shock. The name Wanbin was not in any Council databases. Neither was UES or Indomitable. More troubling, the ships appeared exactly like the mythical human vessels that old scholar Young Sik had described to the Council. "Dalsu, pull up the archived files on the human mythology reports," she ordered. "Commander, those files are classified as fiction. Just do it." The comparison was terrifying. The 5 approaching ships matched the descriptions perfectly. Crude-looking hulls covered in strange markings, massive engines that glowed with the heat of controlled fusion reactions, energy signatures that suggested technology the Council had abandoned thousands of years ago as too dangerous. "Commander," Dalsu whispered, "if these are really the mythical humans, what do we do?" The Council voted that they don't exist. Before Sojin could answer, her proximity alarms began screaming. A new ship had just dropped out of hyperspace nearby, a Council patrol vessel responding to her emergency beacon. Captain Hyunwoo of the Vorthak patrol cruiser Crystal Spear was not in a good mood. He had been pulled away from leave time with his family to investigate what was probably another false alarm. Mining stations were always seeing pirates or smugglers in empty space. "Kepler 7, this is Crystal Spear," he transmitted. "What exactly are we dealing with here?" "Captain, you're not going to believe this," Sojin replied. "We have 5 unknown vessels claiming to be human. They match the old mythology reports exactly." Hyunwoo's crystal body flashed with disbelief. "Commander, humans are not real. They're sensor ghosts and spacer tails. What you're seeing is probably a new type of pirate ship designed to confuse our identification systems." But when his sensors locked onto the approaching vessels, Hyunwoo felt something he had never experienced before: genuine fear. The ships were enormous, easily twice the size of his patrol cruiser. Their hulls were scarred and blackened as if they had traveled through radiation storms that would destroy any normal vessel. "Unknown ships. This is Captain Hyunwoo of the Galactic Council Defense Force," he transmitted. "You are entering Council space without authorization. State your business and prepare for inspection." The response came from the same strange voice that had spoken to Commander Sojin. "Captain Hyunwoo, this is Captain Wonbin. We are refugees from a dead world seeking new home for our families. We have traveled far and need supplies. We mean no harm to Council species." "Refugees?" Hyunwoo examined the sensor data more carefully. The energy signatures were unlike anything in Council records. "What species are you? What world do you come from?" "We are human. We come from Earth." The bridge of the Crystal Spear fell silent. Every crew member had heard the old stories about the mythical human species. But myths did not show up on sensors with fusion drives and hull plating. "That's impossible," Hyunwoo said. "Earth was destroyed centuries ago. Humans never existed." "We exist," Wonbin replied calmly. "Earth was dying when we left. We have been traveling through the outer rim for 300 years. Our families sleep in cold chambers. We need supplies to continue our journey." Hyunwoo felt his crystal mind racing through possibilities. If these were really humans, their existence would change everything the Council believed about space travel and survival. But Council protocols were clear. Unknown species were to be detained and studied. "Unknown vessels, you will power down your weapons and prepare for boarding," Hyunwoo ordered. "Council law requires all new species to undergo evaluation before being granted passage rights." The silence stretched for long minutes. When Wonbin finally responded, his voice carried a hardness that made Sojin's water tank feel suddenly cold. "We cannot comply, Captain. We have children aboard these ships, families who depend on us for protection. We will not surrender our vessels." "You don't understand," Hyunwoo said, trying to keep his voice reasonable. "This is standard procedure. We're not here to harm you. The Council just needs to verify that you pose no threat." "The Council," Wonbin said slowly, "voted that we do not exist. Now you want to take our ships and study us like specimens. We have heard your transmissions, Captain. We know what happens to species that the Council considers dangerous." Hyunwoo realized that the humans had been monitoring Council communications. They knew about the debate over their existence. They knew they had been classified as myths. "Captain Wonbin, I'm trying to help you here. If you cooperate, this can all be resolved peacefully." "We came in peace," Wonbin replied. "We asked only for supplies and safe passage. Instead, you demand we surrender our ships and trust in the mercy of beings who decided we were impossible." The human ships had moved into a defensive formation. Their massive hulls blocked Hyunwoo's view of the stars beyond. Up close, he could see the battle damage they had sustained during their long journey. Holes in the hull plating that had been welded shut, scorch marks from radiation exposure. These ships had survived things that would destroy any Council vessel. "Captain, I have my orders," Hyunwoo said. "Power down your weapons and prepare for inspection, or I will be forced to use military action." Wonbin's laugh was not pleasant. "Military action? Captain, we are the survivors of a dead world. We have crossed the void that your people call impossible. We have nothing left to lose. Are you threatening a council patrol ship? We are defending our families, Wanbin said, just as you would defend yours. The standoff continued as both sides tried to decide what to do next. On the crystal spear, Hyunwoo knew he was outgunned and outnumbered. On the human ships, Wanbin knew they were far from home with nowhere to run. In her water tank on Kepler 7, Commander Sojin watched the sensor readings and realized that everything was about to change. The age of myths was ending. The age of humans had begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in 300 years of peaceful cooperation. Representatives from all 4 species had gathered within hours of Captain Hyunwoo's report. The great crystal dome echoed with angry voices and the sound of fear. Admiral Minho of the Vorthak Defense Fleet stood at the center of the chamber, his crystal body glowing bright red with fury. This is unacceptable. Unknown aliens have entered Council space and refused lawful orders. They must be dealt with immediately. Fleet Marshal Sora floated in her gas-filled sphere, her Nimari voice hissing through the translation speakers. These humans represent chaos. They come from beyond our borders with technology we don't understand. They could be advanced scouts for a larger invasion force. General Jae-sung clicked her mandibles nervously as she spoke. Her Kelthan military training made her analyze every possible threat. Their ships survived the Outer Rim radiation storms. This suggests either advanced shielding technology or natural resistance to radiation that we lack. Both possibilities are dangerous. Only Admiral Insu of the Drenari urged caution. His water tank bubbled as he spoke slowly and carefully. Fellow council members, perhaps we should consider negotiation. These humans have asked only for supplies and safe passage. They claim to carry civilian families. Admiral Minho's crystal form flashed brighter. How convenient. Every invader in history has claimed to be peaceful refugees. We cannot allow unknown aliens to establish a foothold in our territory. Young Sik, the old scholar who had tried to warn them months earlier, requested permission to speak. His crystal body was dim with age and stress. Honored council members, I tried to tell you this day would come. The humans are not invaders. They are survivors. Survivors of what? Sora demanded. You said their world was dying. Dead worlds don't produce spacefaring civilizations. Unless, young Sik said quietly. They left before it died completely. Think about what that means. An entire species abandoned their homeworld and traveled through space that we consider impossible to cross. What kind of beings accomplish such a feat? General Jae-sung studied the tactical data from Captain Hyunwoo's encounter. Their ships are larger than our heavy cruisers but appear to be built with primitive materials. However, size could compensate for technological weakness. 5 ships against 1 patrol vessel. They had overwhelming numerical superiority. Which is why we must act quickly, Admiral Minho declared. I propose we send a joint council fleet to the human position. 30 ships should be sufficient to handle 5 primitive vessels. Admiral Insu bubbled a protest. 30 warships against refugees. This seems excessive. Excessive. Sora's gas sphere clouded with agitation. These aliens refused lawful council orders. They threatened one of our patrol ships. By law, they are now hostile combatants. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Fear had replaced reason in the council chambers. The idea that myths could become reality had shaken the foundations of everything they believed about the galaxy. When the vote was called, only Admiral Insu voted against military action. The motion passed. A joint council fleet would move to the human position with orders to capture or destroy the unknown vessels. Meanwhile, in the depths of space near the neutral zone, Captain Wanbin sat in his command chair studying intercepted council transmissions. The human ships had been monitoring alien communications since first contact, and their translation computers were getting better at understanding galactic standard. Captain, said Communications Officer Sun Hee, I'm reading massive fleet movements from all 4 council territories. It looks like they're assembling a strike force. Wanbin nodded grimly. He had expected this response. 300 years of space travel had taught humanity many hard lessons about first contact with alien species.
How long until they arrive?
18 hours, sir. Maybe 20 if they're being careful about formation flying. Wanbin activated the inter-ship communication system. All ships, this is Indomitable. Priority Alpha message to all captains. Report to the command frequency immediately. Within minutes, the other 4 human ship captains appeared on his main screen. Captain Unji of the Defiant, her scarred face showing the stress of the long journey. Captain Dong Hyun of the Perseverance, still tired from his recent shift monitoring the sleeping colonists. Captain Mi Young of the Resilience, young but experienced in void warfare. And Captain Sung Ho of the Endurance, the oldest of them all and a veteran of the resource wars on dying Earth. Fellow captains, Wanbin began, the Council has decided we are a threat. They're sending a fleet to capture or destroy us. How many ships? Asked Yoonji. 30. All military vessels with crews trained for space combat. Sung Ho laughed bitterly. 30 against 5. I've seen worse odds. Sir, Mi Young said carefully, what about the families? We have over 2 million people in cryosleep. If we fight and lose, if we surrender, they'll take our ships and study us like laboratory specimens, Wanbin replied. Our families will become prisoners in alien research facilities. Our children will grow up as curiosities for Council scientists. Dong Hyun checked his ship's status displays. The Perseverance is ready for combat. Our fusion drives are at full power, and all weapon systems are operational. Same here, reported Yoonji. The Defiant has been spoiling for a fight since we entered Council space. Wanbin looked at each captain in turn. These were his friends, his fellow survivors from humanity's darkest hour. They had trusted him to lead them across the void to a new home. Now he was asking them to risk everything in a battle they might not win. I won't lie to you, he said. We're outnumbered 6-1. Their ships probably have better shields and weapons than ours, but we have advantages they don't know about. Such as? Asked Mi Young. We're human, Wanbin said simply. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We survived ice ages, pandemics, predators, and our own stupidity. We turned the last resources of a dying planet into these ships and crossed space that aliens think is impossible. Sung Ho nodded slowly. The Council species have been peaceful for 3 centuries. They fight by rules and protocols. We fight to survive. Exactly, Wanbin agreed. They think we're primitive because our technology is different from theirs. Let's show them what human engineering can really do. The 5 captains spent the next few hours planning their defense. They shared tactical data, coordinated their weapon systems, and prepared their crews for combat. Most importantly, they said goodbye to sleeping family members they might never see again. As the Council fleet approached, Wanbin made one final transmission to his fellow humans. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who died on Earth believing their children would find a better life among the stars. We're fighting for the future of our species. In the distance, 30 alien warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with advanced technology, and their weapons charged with enough power to destroy planets. Facing them were 5 battered human ships, scarred by centuries of travel through the cosmic wasteland. Ships built from the scraps of a dying world by a species with nothing left to lose. The Council had made their decision. They would show these primitive humans the proper order of galactic civilization. They had no idea what they had just awakened. The Battle of the Neutral Zone began with what the Council thought would be a simple display of superior firepower. Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive Vorthak dreadnought Crystal Throne, watching the 5 human ships through his tactical displays. Maintain formation, he ordered his fleet. We'll surround them and force surrender through overwhelming presence. These primitives will see reason when faced with proper military might. Captain Subin, his tactical officer, highlighted the human vessels on the main screen. Admiral, their ships are even larger than our initial reports suggested, and those energy signatures, they're running their fusion reactors at dangerous levels. Desperation, Minho replied dismissively. They're pushing their primitive engines beyond safe limits because they know they're outmatched. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Unknown vessels, you are surrounded by the combined might of the Galactic Council. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your final warning. The response came from Captain Wanbin, his voice calm despite the impossible odds. Admiral Minho, we tried peaceful contact. We asked only for supplies and safe passage. You chose war instead. So be it. War? Minho's crystal body flashed with amusement. This isn't war, human. This is a police action against lawbreakers. Surrender now and you will be treated according to Council law. We know your laws, Wanbin replied. We've been monitoring your communications. Your laws say we don't exist. Your laws would make our children into research subjects. We reject your laws. Minho's patience finally ran out. All ships target the human vessels. Disable their engines and weapon systems. Try not to destroy them completely. We need specimens for study. The Council fleet opened fire with coordinated precision. 30 ships unleashed energy beams designed to overload enemy shields and disable critical systems. The space between the fleets lit up like a small star as directed energy weapons lanced through the void. The humans' response was immediate and terrifying. Instead of returning fire with energy weapons, the human ships launched what appeared to be simple chunks of metal. Captain Subin laughed as her sensors tracked the primitive projectiles. "Admiral, they're shooting solid matter at us. Their weapons are even more backward than we thought." Her laughter died when the kinetic rounds struck the Crystal Throne's shields at 90% of light speed. The Council had designed their defensive systems to deflect or absorb directed energy. Their shields were perfect protection against lasers, plasma beams, and particle weapons. But solid matter moving at relativistic speeds was something entirely different. The first kinetic projectile punched through the Crystal Throne's shields like they didn't exist. It tore through the hull plating, vaporized 3 decks of crew quarters, and exited through the rear of the ship in a spray of superheated metal. "Impossible," Subin screamed as damage reports flooded her console. "How are they accelerating solid projectiles to near light speed?" Wanbin's voice crackled over the communication channel. "Gravity manipulation and magnetic acceleration. We learned to weaponize everything during the resource wars on Earth. The human ship Perseverance demonstrated the next lesson in human warfare." Captain Donghyun rotated his vessel and fired his main fusion drive directly at 3 approaching Council ships. The stream of controlled stellar fire turned the space around them into a miniature sun. "They're using their propulsion system as a weapon," Admiral Minho shouted in disbelief. "That's not how space combat works." "Apparently it is now," replied Captain Yunji from the Defiant. Her ship had modified its mining lasers into cutting beams that sliced through Council hull plating, like a hot knife through ice. "You want to see primitive? We'll show you primitive." The Council fleet, trained for civilized warfare with established rules and proper protocols, found themselves facing an enemy that followed no rules at all. The humans used debris as shrapnel, turned their own ships into guided missiles, and employed every system as a potential weapon. Captain Subin watched in horror as the human ship Resilience changed course directly toward her position. "Admiral, one of their vessels is on a collision course. They're not slowing down." "Activate tractor beams," Minho ordered. "Pull them off their attack vector." But Captain Mi-young had no intention of being stopped. Her final transmission to the human fleet was calm and determined. "For Earth, for our children, for the future of humanity." The Resilience struck the Namari command ship at full velocity, but instead of simply ramming the enemy vessel, Mi-young had overloaded her ship's fusion reactor just before impact. The resulting explosion created a temporary star that vaporized 6 Council ships and damaged a dozen others. The shockwave from the explosion sent the surviving Council vessels tumbling through space. Emergency alarms screamed on every bridge as captains tried to restore order to their fleets. "What kind of madness is this?" Fleet Marshal Sora gasped from her damaged command sphere. "They destroyed their own ship just to take down our vessels." "The madness of a species with nothing left to lose," Wanbin replied over the communication channel. "We've been dying for centuries. Death doesn't scare us anymore." General Jae-sung watched her tactical displays with growing horror. In less than an hour, the mighty Council fleet had been reduced to 8 heavily damaged ships. The humans had lost only 1 vessel, but they had made it count for 6 enemy destroyers. "This is impossible," she clicked frantically. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They shouldn't be able to fight us like this." Captain Sung-ho from the Endurance answered her unspoken question. "Technology doesn't win wars, General. Will does. And we have the will of a species that refused to give up even when our world was dying." Admiral Minho realized that his grand display of Council superiority had become a complete disaster. His fleet was beaten, his ships were damaged, and the humans showed no signs of slowing down. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance," he ordered. "We need to regroup and reassess the situation." "Retreat?" Wanbin's voice carried a dangerous edge. "You came here to capture or destroy us, Admiral. Now you want to leave? I don't think so." The human ships pursued the fleeing Council vessels, their kinetic weapons and improvised missiles taking a steady toll. Every few minutes another Council ship fell behind with critical damage or was destroyed completely. By the time the survivors reached the edge of the system, only 8 council ships remained operational. The rest were either destroyed or drifting in space with dead engines and breached hulls. Admiral Minho's final transmission before jumping to hyperspace was filled with a fear he had never felt before. "What manner of devils have we awakened?" The answer came from Captain Wanbin, his voice carrying across the void to reach every surviving council vessel. "We are human. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived by becoming deadlier than anything that hunted us." As the council fleet retreated in defeat, the 4 remaining human ships regrouped near the debris field that had once been the Resilience. They had won their first battle, but everyone knew it was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you cornered a species that had evolved not just to survive, but to thrive in the face of extinction itself. The news of the Council fleet's defeat spread through civilized space like wildfire. On every world and every station, beings who had lived their entire lives in peace watched the battle recordings with growing horror and disbelief. President Hyunjin of the Vorthak Republic called an emergency session of the Planetary Council. His crystal form flickered with rage as he addressed the assembled representatives. "This is a disaster beyond imagination. 30 of our finest warships defeated by 5 primitive vessels. We must mobilize every ship, every weapon, every soldier. These humans must be destroyed before they spread their chaos further." Chief Scientist Da-un of the Namari Collective had spent days analyzing the wreckage recovered from the battle. Her findings were disturbing beyond measure. "Honored council members, I must correct a fundamental misunderstanding. Human technology is not primitive. It's optimized for warfare in ways we never imagined." "Explain," demanded President Hyunjin. Da-un's holographic displays showed detailed scans of human ship components. Their fusion reactors can be weaponized within seconds. Their structural supports double as armor plating. Their cargo bays can be converted to missile launchers. Every system on their ships has a secondary military function. General Jae-sung, still recovering from the trauma of the battle, clicked her mandibles nervously. More troubling is their tactical doctrine. They don't fight to win, they fight to destroy. That ship that rammed our command vessel, the pilot didn't hesitate to sacrifice herself and her entire crew to eliminate 6 of our ships. Admiral Insu floated quietly in his water tank, analyzing intelligence reports from the neutral zone. "Fellow council members, we may be facing a more serious problem than you realize. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected new energy signatures entering the outer rim. These humans may not be alone." "What do you mean?" President Hyunjin asked. "The 5 ships we encountered were loaded with civilian families in cryogenic sleep. They were refugees, not warriors. What happens when their military vessels arrive?" The thought sent waves of fear through the assembled leaders. If refugee ships could destroy a council fleet, what could purpose-built human warships accomplish? Meanwhile, in the depths of space near the battle site, Captain Wanbin was making decisions that would reshape galactic history. The human fleet had spent the past week analyzing captured council technology and intercepting enemy communications. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Sun Hee, "I'm monitoring massive military buildups in all 4 council territories. They're preparing for total war against us." Wanbin nodded grimly. He had expected this response. The council would never accept the existence of a species they couldn't control or understand. "What's our current status?" Engineer Bora looked up from her analysis of captured council equipment. "The good news is their technology is incredibly advanced but also incredibly specialized. Their weapons are designed for specific targets. Their shields work only against certain attacks. The bad news is they have thousands of ships and we have 4. Dr. Gite finished treating the last of the wounded from the Resilience's crew who had been rescued from escape pods. "Captain, we've lost almost 300 people. The families are starting to ask questions about why we're not continuing to our planned destination." Wanbin understood the weight of command. 2 million sleeping colonists depended on his decisions. But he also understood something the Council did not. Humanity's greatest strength had always been adaptation. "Bora, how long would it take to modify our remaining ships based on what we've learned from Council technology? If we cannibalize non-essential systems and work around the clock, maybe 2 weeks for basic improvements, a month for major modifications." "Sunhee, what's our best estimate for when the Council's full military response will arrive?" "Based on their mobilization patterns, 6 weeks minimum. Probably closer to 2 months if they're being thorough." Wanbin made his decision. We're not running anymore. Send a priority signal to the other captains. We're going to wake up our best engineers, our top scientists, and every person with military experience. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do. Over the next month, the human ships transformed themselves into something the Council had never seen before. Using captured technology and human innovation, they became hybrid vessels that combined the best of both civilizations. Captain Yunji's ship Defiant was equipped with Council energy shields powered by human fusion reactors. The result was defensive capability that could absorb punishment from multiple enemy ships. Captain Donghyun's Perseverance received Council sensor arrays modified with human targeting computers. Now they could track and engage dozens of enemy vessels simultaneously. Captain Sungho's Endurance became a mobile factory, using Council fabrication technology to produce kinetic ammunition and repair materials for the entire fleet. But the most important change was in the crew. For the first time since leaving Earth, thousands of humans emerged from cryogenic sleep. Engineers, soldiers, scientists, and pilots, the best and brightest of a dying world, now awakened to defend their families. As the modifications neared completion, Wanbin prepared for the most important transmission of his life. He had monitored Council communications long enough to understand their fears and motivations. Now he would use that knowledge to change the balance of power in the galaxy. "This is Captain Wanbin of the United Earthship Indomitable," he began, broadcasting on all Council frequencies. "To the Galactic Council and all beings who call this galaxy home, we bring a message of truth." The transmission was carried across civilized space, reaching every world and every station. For the first time, the galaxy heard the human story in their own words. "You have been told that we are myths, that we are impossible. We are neither. We are the children of Earth, a world that spent 4 billion years perfecting the art of survival. We learned to thrive in conditions that would kill any of your species within minutes." The recording showed images of Earth in its final days, storms that could level cities, radiation levels that would sterilize most worlds, temperatures that swung between extremes no Council species could survive. "We came to your space as refugees, seeking only supplies and safe passage to a new home for our families. You met us with weapons and demands for surrender. You decided that we were a threat to be eliminated." The transmission switched to battle footage, showing Council ships attacking first and human ships responding with devastating effectiveness. "You were wrong about us being myths. You were wrong about us being primitive, and you are wrong if you think we will submit to your authority or allow you to harm our families." The final images showed the modified human ships in their new configurations, sleek vessels that combined alien technology with human engineering, crewed by beings who had learned to weaponize everything around them. "We are not your enemies, but we will not be your victims. We offer peace to those who accept our right to exist. To those who continue to threaten us, we offer only this warning. We have nothing left to lose, and we remember every lesson our dead world taught us about survival." The transmission ended with coordinates, not of the human fleet's location, but of staging areas where Council forces were assembling for their next attack. As the message spread across the galaxy, reactions varied wildly. Some species called for immediate negotiation. Others demanded total war against the human threat. But everyone understood that the age of Council dominance was ending. Admiral Insu, monitoring the transmission from his command ship, made a prophetic statement that would prove absolutely accurate. "They don't fight like us because they're not like us. They're predators from a death world, and we just taught them that the galaxy is hunting season." The camera pulled back to show the vastness of space, where 4 human ships drifted like sleeping giants among the stars. Across the galaxy, alien fleets prepared for a war unlike anything in their history. A war against a species that had evolved not just to survive, but to make survival itself into an art form. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.